Have you ever wondered what it takes to transform from someone who avoids confrontation into someone willing to fight for what's right? Emily Rodriguez was about to find out. It started when an 8-year-old boy arrived at her medical clinic with a dangerous fever, and his desperate mother began attacking the very people trying to save him. What happened next changed Emily forever.
Emily Rodriguez adjusted the stack of patient files on her desk for the third time that evening, trying to keep her hands busy as the weight of the moment settled over her. The Martinez Family Medical Clinic felt different today, quieter somehow, despite the familiar hum of the air conditioning and the distant traffic sounds filtering through the windows. Maybe it was because she knew this was the end. At 26, Emily had worked at the clinic for exactly 2 years, 4 months, and 11 days. Not that she was counting or anything. She'd started here fresh out of community college with her medical office administration certificate, grateful for any job that would help her pay off her student loans and contribute to her family's household expenses. What she hadn't expected was how much this place would come to mean to her. The clinic occupied the ground floor of a modest 2-story building on Central Avenue, wedged between a Mexican restaurant that filled the air with the scent of cumin and chili peppers, and a barber shop that had been run by the same family for 3 generations. It wasn't fancy. The carpet had seen better decades, and the waiting room chairs were mismatched donations from various sources, but it had served the community faithfully for over 30 years. Dr. Alejandro Martinez moved slowly through his evening routine, gathering personal items from his office. At 60 years old, with silver hair that seemed to grow more distinguished each month, and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, he had been the neighborhood's trusted physician for longer than Emily had been alive. Everyone called him Dr. M, and he knew not just his patients' medical histories, but their family stories, their struggles, their victories. "Emily, mija," Dr. Martinez called from his office doorway, his voice carrying the slight accent that became more pronounced when he was tired or emotional. "Could you help me with these boxes? I think I have accumulated more memories than I realized." Emily pushed back from her desk and walked to where Dr. Martinez stood surrounded by cardboard boxes filled with medical journals, family photos, certificates, and the countless small tokens patients had given him over the years. A child's drawing of a stethoscope, a ceramic mug proclaiming world's best doctor, a small cactus plant that somehow managed to thrive despite the office's limited natural light. "Are you sure you want to take all of this?" Emily asked, lifting one of the heavier boxes. "Your wife might not appreciate the invasion." Dr. Martinez chuckled, but Emily caught the sadness in his eyes. "Maria has been preparing for this invasion for months. She's already cleared out half the garage and threatened to donate my golf clubs if I bring home too much office junk." He picked up a framed photo of himself on graduation day from medical school, looking impossibly young and optimistic. "But some things you can't just leave behind." They worked in comfortable silence for a while, packing away 3 decades of a medical practice. Emily had done this dance with Dr. Martinez countless times over the past 2 years, the easy rhythm of 2 people who had learned to work together seamlessly. He would start to lift something too heavy, and she would smoothly take it from him. She would reach for something on a high shelf, and he would appear with the step stool before she even asked. "You know," Dr. Martinez said, carefully wrapping a glass paperweight that had been a gift from his first patient, "when I opened this clinic in 1993, I never imagined it would end like this. I always thought I'd find someone to take over, maybe a young doctor looking for a place to build their practice." Emily nodded, having heard variations of this conversation many times over the past few months. The healthcare landscape had changed dramatically since Dr. Martinez first hung out his shingle. Independent practices like his were becoming increasingly rare, squeezed out by hospital networks, insurance complications, and the crushing administrative burden that made it nearly impossible for a single physician to operate efficiently. "The new urgent care center down the street? They offered to buy your patient list." "Corporate medicine," Dr. Martinez replied with a slight shake of his head. 15 minutes per patient, electronic forms that take longer to fill out than the actual examination, doctors who never see the same patient twice. That's not why I became a physician." Emily understood his frustration, even if she'd never experienced it directly. In her 2 years at the clinic, she'd watched Dr. Martinez spend extra time with elderly patients who were lonely and just needed someone to listen. She'd seen him waive fees for families going through hard times, provide samples of expensive medications to people who couldn't afford them, and make house calls to patients too sick to travel. These weren't things that would show up on any corporate efficiency report, but they were the things that made Dr. Martinez the kind of doctor his community trusted implicitly. I got the job at Phoenix General. Start Monday morning, trauma center reception. It'll be different.
Different is good, Dr. Martinez replied, but Emily could hear the question in his voice. They both knew that Phoenix General, while offering better pay and benefits, would be a completely different environment. Instead of knowing every patient's name and story, Emily would be processing hundreds of strangers each day. Instead of the personal touch that defined the Martinez Clinic, she'd be part of a vast medical machine focused on efficiency and throughput. "I'm grateful for everything you taught me," Emily continued, "not just the medical terminology and insurance procedures, but how to really listen to people, how to make them feel heard even when they're scared or angry or frustrated." Dr. Martinez paused in his packing and looked at Emily directly. "You were a natural at that, Mija. From your first day, you understood that people come to us during some of the most vulnerable moments of their lives. They're worried about their health, their families, their ability to pay for treatment. The way you treated them, with dignity and respect and genuine care, that's not something I taught you. That's who you are." Emily felt a flush of warmth at the compliment, but also a pang of uncertainty. Was she ready for the impersonal environment of a major hospital? Would she be able to maintain that personal connection when dealing with the volume and pace of a trauma center? The front door chimed, interrupting her thoughts. Emily glanced at the clock on the wall. 6:15 p.m. The clinic had officially closed at 6, and they weren't expecting any more patients. Dr. Martinez had spent the afternoon saying goodbye to his regular patients, emotional farewells that had left both him and Emily feeling drained. "I'll check who that is," Emily said, walking toward the reception area. Through the glass door, she could see a woman pacing back and forth on the sidewalk, a young boy beside her. The woman appeared to be agitated, frequently checking her phone and looking toward the clinic with an expression Emily couldn't quite read from this distance. Emily unlocked the door and stepped halfway out. "Excuse me, can I help you? The clinic is closed for the day, but if this is an emergency, I can direct you to the nearest urgent care center." The woman turned sharply toward Emily. She appeared to be in her early 30s, professionally dressed in a business suit that suggested she'd come straight from work. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a ponytail that had started to come loose, and her makeup showed signs of stress and perhaps tears. "Please," the woman said, her voice tight with controlled panic. "I need to see the doctor. My son Tyler has been running a fever all day and it's getting worse. I tried the urgent care center, but their wait time is 3 hours, and the emergency room said it could be 5 hours for non-life-threatening cases. I heard Dr. Martinez is the best pediatrician in the area." Emily looked down at the boy, who appeared to be around 8 years old. His cheeks were flushed with fever, and he was leaning heavily against his mother's leg, clearly not feeling well. "I'm sorry," Emily said gently, "but Dr. Martinez isn't actually a pediatrician. He's a family practice physician. And unfortunately, today was his last day of practice. He's retiring. And the clinic is closing permanently." The woman's face crumpled slightly. "Closing? But someone at my work said he was wonderful with children, that he took the time to really examine patients instead of just rushing them through." "He is wonderful," Emily confirmed, "and he was great with kids. But he's already packed up his medical equipment, and we're not legally able to see new patients at this point." Quick pause. Before we continue, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? If you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit subscribe, because tomorrow's episode is absolutely mind-blowing. Just as Emily was about to recommend another facility, something in the mother's expression stopped her. It wasn't just frustration or inconvenience. It was genuine fear. The kind of fear that only comes when a parent is truly worried about their child's well-being. Emily had seen it before in the clinic, and she had learned to recognize the difference between routine concern and real panic. "How high is his fever?" Emily found herself asking. It was 102.3 when I checked an hour ago, the woman replied. I'm Karen Mitchell. This is Tyler. He woke up this morning saying his stomach hurt, but I thought it was just school anxiety. He's been having some issues with bullies lately. But then the fever started, and he's been getting more and more lethargic. Emily felt a chill of concern. High fever combined with abdominal pain could indicate several serious conditions, some of which required immediate medical attention. She glanced back toward Dr. Martinez's office, knowing she was about to overstep her boundaries as a receptionist. Wait here just one moment, Emily said. Let me talk to Dr. Martinez. She found him in his office, carefully placing his diploma in a protective sleeve. Dr. M, there's a mother here with her 8-year-old son. High fever, abdominal pain. She's tried urgent care and the ER, but the wait times are impossible. Dr. Martinez looked up from his packing, and Emily could see the internal struggle playing out across his face. Technically, his license was still active until midnight tonight. But his malpractice insurance had ended at 5 p.m. The medical equipment had been picked up earlier in the week. He had every legal and practical reason to send them elsewhere. What's your gut telling you about this, Emily? Emily had learned to trust her instincts when it came to reading patients and their families. She's scared, Dr. M, really scared, and the boy looks pretty sick. If it were my nephew. Dr. Martinez nodded slowly, then walked past Emily toward the reception area. Through the glass door, he could see Karen Mitchell crouched down next to her son, pressing the back of her hand against his forehead while speaking to him in soothing tones. He unlocked the door and opened it fully. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm Dr. Martinez. Emily tells me Tyler isn't feeling well. I have to be honest with you. I'm officially retired as of today, and I don't have my full medical equipment available anymore. But if you'd like, I can do a basic examination and give you my professional opinion about whether this needs immediate emergency care. Karen's relief was visible. Yes, please, anything. I just need to know if I should be panicking or not. Dr. Martinez looked at Emily and said, Would you mind turning the lights back on in exam room 1? And see if there's still a thermometer in the supply closet. As Emily busied herself preparing the exam room, she reflected on what was happening. This wasn't standard protocol. They were closed, uninsured, and operating outside normal procedures. But she'd watched Dr. Martinez make decisions like this before, putting patient care above bureaucratic concerns, trusting his medical judgment and his sense of humanity. Emily found a basic thermometer and grabbed a disposable gown from the supply closet. The room looked bare without the usual medical equipment. No blood pressure cuff, no otoscope, no stethoscope, just an examination table, a chair, and a sink. Tyler's temperature is 103.1, Dr. Martinez announced as Emily entered the room. Mrs. Mitchell, I need to ask you some questions, and I need Tyler to show me exactly where his stomach hurts. For the next 15 minutes, Emily watched Dr. Martinez work with nothing but his hands, his experience, and his instincts. Without his usual diagnostic tools, he relied on old-school physical examination techniques, palpating Tyler's abdomen, checking for rebound tenderness, observing the boy's posture and movement. Tyler, Dr. Martinez said gently, I want you to try to jump up and down for me, just a little bit. The boy tried to comply but immediately doubled over in pain. It hurts too much, he whispered. Dr. Martinez exchanged a look with Emily, then turned to Karen with a serious expression. Mrs. Mitchell, I believe Tyler may have appendicitis. The fever, the abdominal pain, and especially his inability to tolerate any jarring movement all point in that direction. Karen went pale. Appendicitis? That's serious, right? That requires surgery. It can be very serious if not treated promptly, Dr. Martinez confirmed. The good news is that it's completely treatable when caught early, but Tyler needs to get to an emergency room immediately, not in 3 or 5 hours. But you said the wait time at the ER is 5 hours for non-life-threatening cases, Karen said, her voice rising with panic.
Not if I call ahead and explain the situation. If I recommend immediate evaluation for suspected appendicitis, they'll prioritize him. Emily watched relief flood across Karen's face, followed immediately by gratitude. Thank you so much, Dr. Martinez. I can't believe you did this for us when you don't even know us. Every child deserves proper medical care, Dr. Martinez replied simply. Emily, would you mind calling Phoenix General and asking for the emergency department? Tell them Dr. Martinez is sending over a pediatric patient with suspected appendicitis. As Emily reached for the phone, she felt the surge of pride in her mentor and in the values he'd demonstrated throughout their working relationship. This was exactly why his retirement felt like such a loss to the community. Not just his medical expertise, but his willingness to put patients first, always. But as she dialed the hospital's number, Emily had no idea that their evening was about to take a dramatically different turn.
Emily had just finished speaking with the emergency department nurse when she heard raised voices from the examination room. At first, she assumed it was just Karen's relief manifesting as emotional gratitude. But as she hung up the phone, she realized the tone was all wrong. Instead of tears of relief, she was hearing anger. No, absolutely not. Karen's voice carried clearly through the thin walls. I'm not taking him to the emergency room. I've already told you I can't afford it. Emily walked quickly back to the examination room, where she found Dr. Martinez looking confused and concerned. Karen was standing protectively in front of Tyler, who remained sitting on the examination table looking increasingly miserable. Mrs. Mitchell, Dr. Martinez said patiently, I understand emergency room visits can be expensive, but we're talking about a potentially life-threatening condition. Most hospitals have payment plans, and there are programs available for people who can't afford immediate payment. You don't understand, Karen shot back, her earlier gratitude completely replaced by defensive anger. I don't have insurance. I lost my job 3 months ago, and I've been working temp jobs that don't provide benefits. Do you have any idea what an emergency room visit costs? What surgery costs? We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars I don't have. Emily felt a pang of sympathy. She had seen this scenario play out before at the clinic. People caught in the impossible gap between making too much money to qualify for government assistance, but not having enough to afford private insurance or major medical bills. Mrs. Mitchell, Dr. Martinez said gently, I understand your concern about costs, but Tyler's health has to come first. We can worry about the financial aspects later. Karen's expression hardened. Easy for you to say. You're not the one who will be fielding calls from collection agencies for the next 5 years. There has to be another option. Can't you just give him antibiotics or something? Isn't there a way to treat this without surgery? Ma'am, Dr. Martinez replied, his voice still patient but firmer now. Appendicitis is not something that can be treated with antibiotics alone. If Tyler's appendix ruptures, he could develop peritonitis, which is life-threatening. We're not talking about a condition where we can try conservative treatment first. Emily watched the exchange with growing unease. She'd seen desperate parents before, but something about Karen's demeanor was shifting in a way that made her uncomfortable. The woman's initial panic about her son's condition was being overtaken by a different kind of desperation, financial panic that was affecting her judgment. I've been reading about appendicitis on my phone, Karen continued, her voice taking on a challenging edge. It says that in some cases, antibiotics can be effective. European countries use antibiotic treatment more often than surgery. Why are American doctors so quick to recommend expensive procedures? Dr. Martinez sighed, and she could see his fatigue beginning to show. This had supposed to have been his farewell evening, a peaceful end to 3 decades of practice. Instead, he was dealing with a complex medical and ethical situation that had no easy resolution. Mrs. Mitchell, while it's true that some research has explored antibiotic treatment for appendicitis, that's typically for very specific cases with mild, uncomplicated presentations. Tyler's symptoms, the high fever, the severe pain, the inability to move without discomfort, these suggest a more advanced case that requires surgical intervention. But you don't know for sure, Karen pressed. You said yourself you don't have your regular equipment here. You're making this diagnosis based on a basic physical exam? What if you're wrong? Emily saw Dr. Martinez's jaw tighten slightly.
In her 2 years working with him, she'd learned to recognize the signs of his growing frustration, though he rarely let it show with patience. "Mrs. Mitchell, you're right that I don't have access to my usual diagnostic tools like ultrasound or CT scans, but I've been practicing medicine for 37 years, and I've diagnosed appendicitis many times. Tyler's presentation is classic, and the risk of waiting or trying alternative treatments is simply too high." Karen crossed her arms, her defensive posture becoming more pronounced. "So basically you're asking me to trust your gut feeling with my son's life and my financial future? That's not exactly confidence-inspiring." Emily felt a flash of indignation on Dr. Martinez's behalf. She'd watched him agonize over difficult diagnoses, spend extra time researching unusual cases, and consistently put patients' well-being above his own convenience. To hear his professional judgment dismissed so casually felt deeply unfair. "Dr. Martinez has an excellent reputation," Emily interjected, immediately regretting speaking up when both adults turned to look at her. "I mean, he's been serving this community for decades. His diagnostic skills are really respected." Karen's gaze sharpened as it focused on Emily. "And you are?" "I'm the receptionist," Emily replied, feeling suddenly small under the woman's scrutiny. "The receptionist," Karen repeated, her tone making it clear what she thought about Emily's qualifications to comment on medical matters. "Well, since you seem to have opinions about medical care, maybe you can explain to me why your doctor is so eager to send my son for emergency treatment on his last day of work. Seems convenient that he doesn't have to deal with any follow-up." Emily felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment and anger. The implication that Dr. Martinez was somehow trying to dump Tyler's case to avoid responsibility was so far from the truth that it left her momentarily speechless. Dr. Martinez's voice, when he spoke, was carefully controlled. "Mrs. Mitchell, I understand you're frightened and overwhelmed. As a parent myself, I know how terrifying it can be when your child is sick, but I need you to understand that my recommendation is based purely on Tyler's medical needs. I have nothing to gain from sending him to the emergency room. In fact, calling ahead to recommend immediate evaluation puts my professional reputation on the line." Karen seemed to consider this for a moment, then shook her head. "I need another option. There has to be something else we can try first." Tyler, who had been quietly listening to the adult conversation, suddenly spoke up in a weak voice. "Mom, I feel really sick. My stomach hurts so bad." Karen immediately softened. Crouching down beside the examination table, "I know, sweetheart. Mommy's trying to figure out the best way to help you." Dr. Martinez seized the moment of maternal tenderness. "Mrs. Mitchell, Karen, please look at your son. Really, look at him. He's in significant pain. His fever is climbing and he's getting worse while we debate treatment options. As a physician and as a parent, I'm telling you that Tyler needs immediate medical attention." But instead of responding with understanding, Karen straightened up with renewed defiance. "Don't try to guilt me with parenting lectures, doctor. You have no idea what it's like to be a single mother trying to make impossible choices between your child's health and financial survival. Easy moral decisions are a luxury I can't afford."
Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time. So if you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The tension in the small examination room was becoming unbearable. Emily could feel the weight of the standoff between Dr. Martinez's medical expertise and Karen's financial desperation. Tyler sat on the examination table, looking increasingly pale and miserable, while the adults argued about his future. That's when Karen pulled out her phone and did something that changed everything. "You know what?" Karen said, her voice taking on a calculated edge that made Emily's stomach drop. "I think I need to document this interaction for my own protection." She held up her phone and pressed record. "This is Karen Mitchell, and I'm here at Martinez Family Medical Clinic with my 8-year-old son, Tyler, who's been running a fever. Dr. Martinez is refusing to provide treatment and is instead trying to force us to go to an expensive emergency room, even though I've explained that I can't afford it." Emily watched in horror as Karen continued her recording. The doctor admitted that he doesn't have proper diagnostic equipment and is basing his diagnosis on guesswork, but he's still insisting that my son needs immediate surgery. When I asked about less expensive alternatives, both the doctor and his receptionist became hostile and dismissive. "Mrs. Mitchell, please," Dr. Martinez said, his voice strained. "You're misrepresenting what happened here. I examined Tyler as a courtesy because you were concerned and I gave you my professional medical opinion. I'm not refusing to treat him. I'm recommending the appropriate level of care for his condition." "A courtesy?" Karen's voice rose as she continued recording. "So, you admit you're not actually providing real medical care? You're making life-altering recommendations based on what you call a courtesy examination?" Emily felt sick as she watched the situation spiral out of control. Karen was twisting Dr. Martinez's kindness and professionalism into something ugly and self-serving. The man who had spent his career putting patients first was being painted as uncaring and money-motivated. "I'm going to post this video online," Karen continued, now speaking directly to her phone's camera. "People need to know how they'll be treated if they can't afford expensive procedures, how doctors will refuse to help sick children and then try to cover their tracks by pressuring parents into unaffordable treatments." Dr. Martinez looked stricken. I could see the devastation in his eyes, not just at being falsely accused, but at having his final day of practice end in such an ugly confrontation. This was a man who had delivered babies, comforted dying patients, and provided medical care to 3 generations of families. To have his career conclude with accusations of greed and callousness felt deeply unjust. Emily realized that someone needed to speak up. Not as a receptionist following protocol, but as someone who had witnessed Dr. Martinez's character and dedication every day for 2 years. "Stop," Emily said, her voice sharper than she'd ever used with a patient or family member. "Just stop." Karen turned the phone toward Emily. "Oh, so now the receptionist wants to be part of this? Please tell everyone how you think it's appropriate to—" "Turn off the phone," Emily interrupted, stepping forward with a confidence she didn't know she possessed. "Turn it off now, or I'm calling security." "Security?" Karen laughed. "What security? This is a 2-person clinic in a strip mall." "The police, then," Emily replied steadily. "You're making false statements and threatening to post defamatory content. That's something they take seriously." Karen lowered the phone slightly, but didn't turn off the recording. "I'm not making false statements. I'm documenting exactly what happened here." "No, you're not," Emily said, her voice growing stronger. "You're lying, and you know you're lying." The room went quiet, except for Tyler's labored breathing. Emily realized that this was her moment, not just to defend Dr. Martinez, but to stand up for everything she had learned about integrity and patient care during her time at the clinic. "Here's what actually happened," Emily continued, looking directly at Karen's phone camera. "You came to our clinic after hours when we were officially closed. Dr. Martinez, who retired today and had every right to send you away, chose to examine your son because he was concerned about a child's welfare. He performed a thorough examination and gave you his professional medical opinion based on 37 years of medical experience." Karen tried to interrupt, but Emily kept talking. "When Dr. Martinez recommended emergency care for your son's safety, you became angry about potential costs. That's understandable. Medical bills are scary. But instead of discussing payment options or asking for help navigating the system, you decided to attack the doctor's character and competence. And now you're trying to create a false narrative that paints him as the villain in this story." Emily took a step closer to Karen, her voice softening slightly. "Mrs. Mitchell, I understand you're scared. I understand you're facing an impossible financial situation. But Tyler is getting sicker while we stand here arguing. His fever is climbing, he's in obvious pain, and he needs medical care that we literally cannot provide in this empty clinic." She gestured around the bare examination room. "Look around. There's no equipment, no medications, no surgical facilities.
Even if Dr. Martinez wanted to treat Tyler here, he couldn't. The only responsible thing to do is get Tyler to a place that can actually help him. Karen's defiant expression began to waver slightly. For the first time since she'd started recording, she glanced down at her son, who was now curled up on his side, clutching his stomach. Dr. Martinez, who had been watching Emily's defense with something approaching amazement, stepped forward gently. "Karen, let me call the emergency room again, not just to send Tyler over, but to speak with their financial counselor. Most hospitals have charity care programs and payment plans. Phoenix General specifically has a policy of not turning away patients due to inability to pay." "But the bills," Karen's voice was smaller now, less combative, "will be manageable compared to what happens if Tyler's appendix ruptures, and they'll work with you on payment. I've helped dozens of families navigate hospital billing. There are options you probably don't even know about." Karen looked at her son again, then at her phone, then back at Dr. Martinez and Emily. The fight seemed to be draining out of her, replaced by the exhaustion of a parent who had been trying to make an impossible decision. She started, then stopped. "I just can't afford to lose everything we have left. Tyler and I have already lost so much this year." Emily felt her anger toward Karen soften into something more like compassion. Behind the aggressive behavior and false accusations, she could see a frightened mother who felt trapped between her child's health and financial survival. "You won't lose everything," Emily said gently, "but you could lose Tyler if we don't get him help, and that's not a risk worth taking for any amount of money."
Tyler's soft whimper from the examination table seemed to cut through the tension in the room like a knife. All three adults turned toward him as he tried to shift position and immediately cried out in pain. "Mommy, it hurts so much," he whispered, tears starting to roll down his flushed cheeks. The sight of her son's distress seemed to break something in Karen's defensive facade. She quickly moved to his side, her phone forgotten as she gently smoothed his hair back from his forehead. "I know, baby, I know it hurts," she murmured, and Emily could hear the tears threatening in her voice. Dr. Martinez checked his watch. "Karen, Tyler's been in pain for over an hour now, and his condition is deteriorating. We need to make a decision." Karen looked up from her son, and Emily could see the internal battle playing out across her face. The maternal instinct to protect Tyler from harm was warring with the terror of financial ruin that had driven her defensive behavior. If I take him to the emergency room," Karen said slowly, "and it turns out you're wrong about the appendicitis, I'll still get charged for the ER visit, won't I? Even if they just give him Tylenol and send us home?" Dr. Martinez nodded honestly. "Yes, you would be charged for the evaluation. But Karen, I've seen hundreds of cases of appendicitis over my career. Tyler's presentation is textbook. The fever, the localized pain, the way he's guarding his abdomen, these aren't symptoms that suggest a minor illness." Emily watched Karen struggle with the decision, and she felt a sudden urge to share something personal. "Mrs. Mitchell, can I tell you something? My little brother had appendicitis when he was 10. My mom was a single parent too, working 2 jobs, no insurance." Karen looked at Emily with surprise, perhaps not expecting this level of personal disclosure from the clinic receptionist. "She was terrified about the cost." Emily continued, "She was absolutely terrified. She almost didn't take him to the hospital because she was afraid of what it would mean for our family financially. But you know what would have been worse? If something had happened to my brother because she waited too long." Emily took a deep breath, remembering that frightening night 12 years ago. "The hospital bill was huge. It took my mom 3 years to pay it off, even with the payment plan. But my brother is alive and healthy, and that's what mattered. The money was just money. There are ways to deal with debt, programs to help, second jobs you can take. But there's no way to fix what happens if you lose your child." Karen's composure finally cracked. She covered her face with her hands, and Emily could see her shoulders shaking with suppressed sobs. "I'm so scared," she whispered. "I'm scared of making the wrong choice. I'm scared of not being able to provide for him. I'm scared of losing him."
Dr. Martinez moved closer, his voice gentle with the compassion Emily had seen him show to countless frightened families over the years. Karen, being scared is normal. Being a parent means making difficult decisions based on incomplete information. But in this case, we do have information. Tyler is showing clear signs of a serious condition that requires immediate attention. And I promise you, we'll help you navigate the financial side of this. I know people at Phoenix General. I know which forms to fill out, which programs to apply for. You won't have to figure it out alone. Karen wiped her eyes and looked down at Tyler, who was now lying very still, his face pale except for the fever flush in his cheeks. Tyler, honey, how are you feeling? Really sick, Mom, and scared. That seemed to be the final factor that broke through Karen's resistance. She stood up straighter, and Emily could see the moment when the frightened mother was replaced by a woman ready to do whatever was necessary to protect her child. Okay, Karen said, her voice stronger now. Okay, let's go to the emergency room. Dr. Martinez immediately moved into action. I'll call ahead right now and speak directly with the emergency physician on duty. Emily, could you get Tyler a blanket for the trip and see if we have any of those instant cold packs left? It might help with the fever during transport. But as Emily turned to leave the examination room, Karen caught her arm. Wait, I owe you both an apology, a huge apology. She held up her phone, which was still recording. This is Karen Mitchell again. I need to correct what I said earlier. Dr. Martinez and Emily at the Martinez Family Medical Clinic went above and beyond to help my son tonight. They stayed after hours, examined him carefully, and gave me honest medical advice even though they had no obligation to help us. When I got scared about medical costs, I lashed out unfairly and made accusations that weren't true. She paused, looking at Dr. Martinez with genuine remorse. Dr. Martinez is exactly the kind of doctor we need more of, someone who puts patients first and shows real compassion. I was wrong to question his judgment or his motives. Tyler and I are incredibly grateful for the care we received tonight. Karen stopped the recording and immediately deleted the video. I'm sorry. I was just so overwhelmed, and I took it out on people who were trying to help us. We understand, Dr. Martinez said simply. Fear makes us all do things we wouldn't ordinarily do. The important thing now is getting Tyler the care he needs. While Dr. Martinez made his phone call to the emergency room, Emily helped Karen gather their things and wrap Tyler in a blanket she found in the supply closet. The boy was clearly feeling worse. His skin was hot to the touch, and he seemed drowsy in a way that concerned her. Dr. Martinez? Emily called softly. Tyler seems pretty lethargic. Dr. Martinez finished his call and immediately came over to check on Tyler. He gently lifted his eyelid to check his pupils, then felt his pulse. His heart rate is elevated, and he's showing signs of dehydration from the fever. Karen, we need to get him to the hospital now. I can drive, Karen said, but her hands were shaking as she reached for her car keys. No, Emily said firmly, surprising herself with her decisiveness. You're too upset to drive safely, especially with a sick child in the car. I'll drive you. Karen looked at Emily with surprise. You don't have to do that. You've done so much. Yes, I do have to do that, Emily replied, and she realized she meant it completely. Tyler needs to get to the hospital safely, and you need to be able to focus on him during the trip, not on navigating traffic while you're scared and stressed. Dr. Martinez looked at Emily with pride and something that might have been amazement. In 2 years of working together, he'd never seen her take charge of a situation quite like this. The quiet, efficient receptionist was showing a strength of character that impressed him deeply. That's very thoughtful, Emily. I'll meet you at the hospital as soon as I finish locking up here. You don't need to come to the hospital, Karen protested. You've already retired. You should be home celebrating with your family. Dr. Martinez smiled. Karen, I've been practicing medicine for 37 years. I've never left a case unfinished, and I'm not going to start tonight. Besides, Tyler will feel better seeing a familiar face when he gets there. Emily felt a surge of affection and admiration for her mentor. Even on his last official day of practice, even after being falsely accused and unfairly attacked, Dr. Martinez was still putting his patient's well-being first. 20 minutes later, Emily was navigating through evening traffic toward Phoenix General Hospital, with Karen in the passenger seat constantly turning to check on Tyler, who was lying across the back seat. The boy had grown quieter during the drive, which worried all of them. "How much further?" Karen asked anxiously. "About 5 more minutes," Emily replied, taking what she hoped was a reassuring tone. "Tyler, how are you doing back there?" "Sleepy, and my tummy really hurts." Emily pressed a little harder on the accelerator. Dr. Martinez's call had ensured that the emergency room would be expecting them, which meant Tyler would be seen immediately upon arrival, rather than having to wait in the crowded waiting room. As they pulled into the hospital's emergency entrance, Emily could see a medical team waving outside with a wheelchair. Dr. Martinez's reputation and professional relations were clearly still carrying weight, even on his retirement day. "Kyler Mitchell?" one of the nurses called as Emily parked her car. "That's us," Karen replied, getting out quickly to help her son from the back seat. Emily watched as the medical team efficiently transferred Tyler from her car to their wheelchair and whisked him inside. She was about to get back in her car to find parking when Karen caught her arm. "Please come with me. I know I have no right to ask, but I'm scared, and you've been so kind. I don't want to face this alone." Emily looked at this woman who had been hostile and accusatory just an hour earlier and saw nothing but a frightened mother who needed support. Without hesitation, she locked her car and followed Karen into the hospital.
The emergency room at Phoenix General was a controlled chaos of activity that Emily had never experienced before. As someone who'd worked in a quiet family clinic, the pace and intensity were overwhelming. Medical personnel moved with purpose between treatment rooms, monitors beeped constantly, and there was an undercurrent of urgency that made her realize how different her new work environment would be. Tyler was immediately taken to a treatment room where Dr. Sarah Chen, the emergency physician on duty, began her examination. Emily stayed with Karen in the hallway, offering quiet support as they waited for news. "Mrs. Mitchell?" Dr. Chen emerged from the treatment room after about 15 minutes. "I've examined Tyler and I agree with Dr. Martinez's assessment. The presentation is very consistent with acute appendicitis. We're going to need to run some blood tests and get a CT scan to confirm, but I'm fairly confident that's what we're dealing with." Karen gripped Emily's hand tightly. "So he'll need surgery?" "Most likely, yes. Appendicectomies are very routine procedures, and Tyler is healthy otherwise, which means his prognosis is excellent. I've already called our pediatric surgeon, Dr. Rodriguez, and he's on his way in." "How long will Tyler have to stay in the hospital?" Karen asked. "Typically, laparoscopic appendicectomy patients go home the next day if there are no complications, maybe 2 days if we need to do an open procedure, but that's less likely given Tyler's age and the relatively early stage of his condition." Emily could see some of the tension leave Karen's shoulders. The medical information was frightening, but having concrete facts and a clear treatment plan seemed to help reduce the overwhelming uncertainty she'd been facing. "Dr. Chen," Karen said hesitantly, "I need to ask about the financial aspects. I don't have insurance right now, and I'm wondering about payment options." "Of course," Dr. Chen replied professionally. "I'll have our financial counselor come speak with you while Tyler is having his scans done, but I want to assure you that we'll take care of Tyler regardless of your insurance status. Phoenix General has policies in place to help patients in your situation." Just then, Emily spotted Dr. Martinez walking through the emergency room entrance, carrying a small overnight bag and looking somewhat out of place in his civilian clothes, rather than his usual medical coat. "Dr. Martinez!" Karen called out, and Emily was surprised to see genuine happiness in her expression at seeing the older physician. "How's our patient doing?" Dr. Martinez asked as he approached their group. Dr. Chen turned to greet him with obvious respect. "Dr. Martinez, good to see you. Your diagnosis was spot on. Classic presentation of acute appendicitis. We're taking him for imaging now, but I'm confident we'll be doing an appendectomy tonight."
Excellent work getting him here quickly, Dr. Martinez replied. Then turned to Karen and Emily. How are you two holding up? Better. I'm still scared, but at least now I know what we're dealing with, and everyone here has been so professional and kind. I noticed Karen didn't mention the financial counselor conversation, probably not wanting to bring up the cost concerns that had caused such problems at the clinic. A technician appeared with a wheelchair. Tyler Mitchell, we're ready for his CT scan. Karen looked torn between wanting to accompany Tyler and not wanting to leave the support system she'd found in Emily and Dr. Martinez. Go with him, Emily encouraged. We'll be right here when you get back. As Karen disappeared down the hallway with Tyler and the technician, Dr. Martinez turned to Emily with an expression she couldn't quite read. Emily, what you did tonight was remarkable. The way you handled Mrs. Mitchell's accusations, the way you stood up for medical professionalism, the way you took charge when things got difficult, that wasn't the work of a receptionist. That was the work of someone who truly understands healthcare and patient advocacy. Emily felt herself flush with the compliment. I just did what felt right. I couldn't let her attack you unfairly when you were trying to help her son. It was more than that, Dr. Martinez continued. You showed real leadership tonight. You de-escalated a hostile situation, you provided emotional support to a frightened parent, and you made sure Tyler got to the hospital safely. Those are skills that will serve you well at Phoenix General. I'm nervous about starting here Monday. This is so different from our quiet clinic. Different, yes, but you're ready for it, Dr. Martinez assured her. Tonight proved that you can handle high-pressure situations with grace and competence. Don't let the size and pace of this place intimidate you. Remember that at the heart of it, it's still about taking care of people who need help. Will you visit Tyler tomorrow? I know Karen would appreciate seeing you. Dr. Martinez smiled. Actually, I was planning to stop by before his discharge. Old habits, you know. Once you've been invested in a patient's care, it's hard to just walk away. Their conversation was interrupted by the return of Karen and Tyler from the imaging department. Tyler looked even more tired than before, but he managed a small wave when he saw Emily and Dr. Martinez.
The scan results should be ready in about 30 minutes, the technician informed them. Dr. Chen reappeared shortly after. The blood work confirms what we suspected, elevated white blood cell count consistent with appendicitis. As soon as we have the CT results, we'll get Tyler prepped for surgery. Karen took a deep breath. How long will the surgery take? About an hour for a laparoscopic procedure, maybe 90 minutes if we need to convert to an open appendectomy. Dr. Rodriguez is excellent. He's been doing pediatric surgery here for 15 years. Emily watched Karen process this information, and she could see the woman struggling with anxiety about the surgery itself, not just the financial implications. Tyler will be fine, Emily said quietly. I know it's scary, but appendectomies are one of the most common surgeries. The doctors here do them all the time. I know you're right, Karen replied. It's just, he's all I have. His father hasn't been in the picture since he was a baby, and my parents live across the country. If something happened to Tyler, I don't know what I'd do. Dr. Martinez, who had been listening to this exchange, moved closer to Karen. May I share something with you? I've been practicing medicine for almost 4 decades, and I have seen thousands of parents in your exact situation. The fear you're feeling, the worry about making the right decisions, the sense of being alone with enormous responsibility, that's not weakness. That's love. Karen looked at him with tears in her eyes. And that love, Dr. Martinez continued, is what made you bring Tyler here tonight, even though you were terrified about the cost. It's what made you advocate for him when you thought I was being dismissive. It's what will get you both through this surgery and recovery. You're a good mother, Karen. Tyler is lucky to have you. Emily felt her own eyes getting misty as she watched this interaction. This was exactly why Dr. Martinez's retirement felt like such a loss. Not just his medical expertise, but his ability to see the human story behind every patient encounter and respond with genuine compassion. The financial counselor, a woman named Mrs. Rodriguez, approached their group with a clipboard and a warm smile. Mrs. Mitchell, I understand you have some questions about payment options for Tyler's care.
Karen glanced nervously at Emily and Dr. Martinez, as if afraid they might judge her for needing financial assistance. "It's okay," Emily said gently. "Let's go talk with her together. I promised I'd help you navigate this part." As they walked toward a quiet corner of the waiting area, Emily realized that her evening had been completely transformed from what she'd expected. She'd come to work thinking she'd help Dr. Martinez pack up his memories and close the clinic peacefully. Instead, she'd found herself in the middle of a medical crisis, standing up to hostility, providing emotional support to a stranger, and advocating for a child's health care. But more than that, she discovered something about herself that she'd never known. She was capable of taking charge in difficult situations. She could handle confrontation when it mattered. She could provide leadership and support when people needed it most. And as she sat with Karen and Mrs. Rodriguez, helping to fill out forms and exploring payment options, Emily realized that her perspective on her new job at Phoenix General had completely changed. She wasn't just taking a receptionist position at a bigger hospital. She was taking the next step in what might actually be a meaningful healthcare career.
3 hours later, Emily found herself in the surgical waiting room at 11:30 p.m., sitting beside Karen and watching the minutes tick by on the wall clock. Dr. Martinez had gone to the hospital cafeteria to get coffee for everyone, insisting that they needed to stay alert for when the surgeon came out with news. The waiting room was nearly empty at this hour, with just a few other families scattered around the space, each dealing with their own medical crises. Emily had never spent time in a hospital waiting room before, and she was struck by the strange sense of suspended time that seemed to exist in these places. The feeling that the outside world had stopped while you waited for news that could change everything. "I can't believe you're still here," Karen said quietly. "It's almost midnight, and you've been with us for hours. Don't you have to work tomorrow?" "Actually, I don't," Emily replied. "Today was my last day at the clinic, too. I started a new job Monday, so I have the weekend off." Karen looked at her with surprise. "Your last day, too? So this whole evening was supposed to be some kind of farewell for both of you?" Emily nodded. Dr. Martinez was retiring, the clinic was closing, and I was moving on to work at Phoenix General. We were supposed to spend the evening packing up his office and saying goodbye to the place where I learned everything about working in healthcare. "And instead, you ended up here with me and Tyler," Karen said, shaking her head. "I ruined your last day at the clinic. I turned what should have been a peaceful farewell into a horrible confrontation." "You didn't ruin anything," Emily said firmly. "Actually, I think you might have given us something more meaningful than a peaceful farewell. You gave us one last chance to do what we always did at the clinic, help a family when they needed it most." Karen was quiet for a moment, seeming to consider this. "When I was recording that video earlier, when I was so angry and scared, I said some terrible things about both of you. I accused Dr. Martinez of being money-motivated and dismissive. I implied that you were unprofessional and hostile." Emily remembered the sting of those false accusations, but the anger she'd felt at the time had faded into something more like understanding. "You were terrified," Emily said. "You were facing an impossible choice between your child's health and financial survival. Fear makes people do things they wouldn't normally do." "That's what Dr. Martinez said too," Karen replied. "But that doesn't excuse it. I attacked 2 people who are trying to help me, and I did it publicly, on video. Even though I deleted it, the fact that I was willing to post false accusations about people who had done nothing but show me kindness, that's something I have to live with." Dr. Martinez returned from the cafeteria carrying 3 cups of coffee and a bag of snacks from the vending machines. "Any word from the surgical team?" he asked. "Nothing yet," Emily replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Dr. Chen said it would be about an hour, and it's been about an hour and 15 minutes. Pediatric surgery often takes a bit longer than estimated. Surgeons are more cautious with children, which is exactly what you want," Dr. Martinez said reassuringly. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, sipping their coffee and waiting. Emily found herself thinking about how different this evening had been from what she had expected, and how it had changed her understanding of herself and her capabilities. "Dr. Martinez," she said suddenly, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "In all your years of practice, did you ever have doubts about whether you were making the right decisions, whether you were cut out for healthcare?" Dr. Martinez smiled. "Oh, mija, constantly, especially in my first few years. I second-guessed every diagnosis, worried about every treatment decision, lost sleep over patients I thought I could have helped more effectively."
How did you get past that? I realized that the doubts weren't a sign that I wasn't cut out for medicine. They were a sign that I cared deeply about getting things right. The doctors you have to worry about are the ones who never question themselves, who are so confident in their own judgment that they stop learning and growing. Emily considered this as she watched Karen stare anxiously at the doors leading to the surgical wing. The reason I ask, Emily continued, is because tonight I found myself taking charge of situations I'd never faced before, standing up to hostility, making decisions about how to help Tyler get to the hospital, providing support to Karen when she needed it most. And part of me is wondering if maybe I'm capable of more in healthcare than just being a receptionist. Dr. Martinez looked at her with interest. What are you thinking? I don't know exactly. Maybe nursing school someday? Maybe becoming a physician assistant, something that would let me have more direct impact on patient care. Emily, Dr. Martinez said seriously, based on what I saw tonight, I think you'd be excellent in any of those roles. You have the clinical judgment, the emotional intelligence, and the communication skills that make for outstanding healthcare professionals. Before Emily could respond, Dr. Rodriguez, the pediatric surgeon, emerged from the surgical wing still wearing his scrubs. Karen immediately jumped to her feet. Mrs. Mitchell, Dr. Rodriguez said with a warm smile, Tyler did beautifully. We were able to do the laparoscopic procedure as planned, and his appendix was indeed inflamed, but hadn't ruptured yet. He's going to be perfectly fine. Karen's relief was so profound that she had to sit back down. He's really okay? He's really okay. He's waking up in recovery now, and you can see him in about 20 minutes. He should be able to go home tomorrow afternoon if everything continues to go well. Emily felt her own surge of relief and gratitude. Tyler was safe, Karen's worst fears hadn't been realized, and the crisis that had consumed their entire evening had resolved in the best way possible. Dr. Rodriguez, Dr. Martinez said, standing to shake the surgeon's hand, "Thank you for taking such good care of our patient." Dr. Martinez, I heard you retired today. Congratulations on an outstanding career. Dr. Rodriguez turned to include Emily and Karen in the conversation. Dr. Martinez has referred dozens of patients to me over the years, and his clinical instincts are always spot on. Tyler is lucky that Dr. Martinez was available to recognize the signs of appendicitis so quickly. Karen looked at Dr. Martinez with an expression of profound gratitude, mixed with what Emily recognized as shame about her earlier behavior. Dr. Martinez, Karen said, I owe you an apology that's much bigger than what I said at the hospital earlier. You saved my son's life tonight. If you hadn't been willing to examine him after hours, if you hadn't recognized how serious his condition was, if you hadn't insisted that I bring him to the emergency room, Tyler could have died because of my stubbornness about the cost. Dr. Martinez shook his head gently. Karen, you're a good mother who was faced with an impossible situation. The important thing is that Tyler got the care he needed, and he's going to be fine. But I accused you of trying to get rid of us, of making recommendations based on money rather than medical judgment, of not caring about sick children, Karen continued, her voice breaking slightly. I said those things about a doctor who stayed after retirement to help a complete stranger's child. I don't know how to make that right. Emily watched this exchange and felt moved by Karen's willingness to fully acknowledge her mistakes. It would have been easy for Karen to just express general gratitude and move on, but she was taking responsibility for the specific harm she had caused. You make it right by being the kind of person you were after you calmed down, by putting Tyler's needs first, by accepting help when you needed it, by showing grace under pressure when it really mattered. That's who you really are, Karen. The rest was just fear talking. A nurse appeared to escort Karen to the recovery room to see Tyler. Before she left, Karen turned back to Emily and Dr. Martinez. I know saying thank you isn't enough for what you both did tonight, but thank you for Tyler's life, for your patience with me, for showing me what real healthcare professionals look like. I'll never forget this.
As Karen disappeared down the hallway with the nurse, Emily and Dr. Martinez found themselves alone in the waiting room. Well, Dr. Martinez said with a slight smile, that wasn't exactly the retirement evening I had planned. Emily laughed. I'm sorry about that. Your peaceful farewell got hijacked by drama and crisis. Are you kidding? Dr. Martinez replied. Emily, this was the perfect way to end my career. One last chance to make a real difference in someone's life. One last emergency that ended with a child being saved. One last opportunity to work alongside someone who represents the future of compassionate healthcare. Emily felt herself tearing up at the compliment. Dr. M, working with you for these 2 years changed my life. You taught me that healthcare isn't just about medical procedures and insurance forms. It's about seeing people at their most vulnerable moments and responding with competence and kindness. You already had the kindness, Miha. I just helped you develop the confidence to use it effectively. They walked together toward the hospital exit, both of them exhausted but somehow energized by the evening's events. Emily, Dr. Martinez said as they reached the parking garage, I meant what I said earlier about you considering advanced healthcare training. You have natural instincts for patient care. And after tonight, I think you have the leadership skills to make a real impact in this field. I'm definitely going to think about it, maybe after I get settled at Phoenix General and see how I like working in a hospital environment. Speaking of which, Dr. Martinez said with a grin, you're starting here Monday morning. After tonight, you already know the emergency department staff, you've navigated the hospital layout, and you've seen how the financial counseling process works. You might be the most prepared new employee Phoenix General has ever hired. Emily realized he was right. Her new workplace no longer felt intimidating and unknown. She'd seen how the different departments worked together, she'd observed the professional interactions between medical staff, and she'd experienced firsthand how the hospital handled complex patient situations. Will you visit Tyler tomorrow before he goes home? I think I will. And I think I'll bring him a little gift from the hospital gift shop. Maybe a book or a puzzle to help with his recovery. As Emily drove home through the quiet Phoenix streets, she reflected on how completely the evening had transformed her understanding of herself and her capabilities. She'd started the day thinking of herself as a competent but quiet receptionist who followed instructions and avoided confrontation. She was ending it with the realization that she could take charge in crisis situations, stand up to hostility when it mattered, and provide meaningful support to people in their most frightening moments. More than that, she was ending the day with a completely different perspective on her career in healthcare. Instead of just moving from one administrative position to another, she was beginning to see her work at Phoenix General as the next step towards something bigger. Maybe nursing school, maybe physician assistant training, maybe some other role that would let her have direct impact on patient care. But most importantly, Emily was ending the day with the knowledge that she had helped save a child's life. Not through medical expertise or surgical skill, but through human decency, emotional intelligence, and the courage to stand up for what was right when it really mattered. As she pulled into her apartment complex parking lot, Emily's phone buzzed with a text message from Karen. Tyler is awake and asking for the nice lady who rode with us to the hospital. Thank you for everything. You and Dr. Martinez are angels. Emily smiled as she read the message and looked up at the stars visible above the Phoenix skyline. Tomorrow was a new day, and Monday would bring a new job, but tonight had given her something invaluable. The confidence to know that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do.
6 months later, Emily stood in the break room at Phoenix General, adjusting her new name tag that read Emily Rodriguez, Patient Care Coordinator, and reflecting on how much her life had changed since that pivotal night with Tyler and Karen. The promotion had come after just 4 months in her receptionist role, when her supervisors noticed her exceptional ability to handle difficult situations and provide support to distressed families. The patient care coordinator position was part administrative work and part family advocacy, exactly the kind of role that allowed her to use both her organizational skills and her instinct for helping people navigate complex healthcare situations. Emily's phone paused with a text message, and she smiled when she saw it was from Karen. Tyler's 6-month follow-up went perfectly, clean bill of health, no complications, and he wants to be a doctor when he grows up, like Dr. Martinez and Miss Emily. Hope you're well. These periodic updates from Karen had become a bright spot in Emily's routine. Tyler had recovered completely from his appendectomy and had returned to school without any lingering effects from his medical emergency. More importantly, Karen had successfully applied for several assistance programs that had reduced her medical bills to manageable levels, and she'd found a full-time job with benefits that gave her family the financial security she'd been desperately seeking. Emily, Dr. Chen, the emergency physician who had treated Tyler that night, appeared in the break room doorway.
I just wanted to let you know that the family in room 7 specifically asked for you. The father said he heard from another patient that you were the person who could help them understand their treatment options and navigate insurance issues. This kind of referral had become increasingly common for Emily. Word had spread throughout the hospital that she was particularly skilled at helping families deal with the non-medical aspects of healthcare crises, insurance problems, payment concerns, finding resources for follow-up care, and simply providing emotional support during frightening situations. "I'll be right there," Emily replied, grabbing her tablet and the folder of resource information she'd compiled over her months in the coordinator role. As she walked toward room 7, Emily passed the hospital's main entrance and noticed a familiar figure sitting in the lobby reading a newspaper. Dr. Martinez looked up and waved when he saw her. "Dr. M," Emily said, walking over to greet him. "What brings you to Phoenix General today?" "Actually, I'm here to see you," Dr. Martinez replied with a smile. "I have some news I wanted to share in person." Emily sat down beside him, curious about what could bring her former mentor to the hospital in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. "Do you remember our conversation that night about you considering advanced healthcare training?" Dr. Martinez asked. "Of course. It's actually something I've been thinking about seriously. I've been looking into nursing programs and physician assistant schools." "Well, that's interesting timing because I just accepted a position as a clinical instructor at Arizona State University's physician assistant program. They were looking for someone with extensive primary care experience to help train the next generation of PAs. And apparently my reputation for patient-centered care made me an attractive candidate." Emily felt a surge of excitement for her mentor. "Dr. M, that's wonderful. You'll be an amazing instructor. Those students are going to learn so much from you about what it really means to practice compassionate medicine." "Here's the thing, though," Dr. Martinez continued, his voice taking on the serious tone she remembered from important conversations at the clinic. "I told the program director about a remarkable young woman I'd worked with who demonstrated exceptional clinical judgment and patient advocacy skills. Someone who I thought would be an ideal candidate for PA school if she decided to pursue that path." Emily's heart skipped a beat. "You recommended me?" "I did more than recommend you, Miha. I told Dr. Sarah Williams that if she was looking for students who combined intelligence, compassion, and real-world healthcare experience, she needed to meet Emily Rodriguez. She's interested in setting up an informational interview if you're open to learning more about the program." Emily felt overwhelmed by the possibility. Physician assistant training would allow her to provide direct patient care, make diagnostic decisions, and have the kind of meaningful impact on people's health that she'd been dreaming about since that night with Tyler. I don't know what to say," Emily managed. "Dr. Martinez, that's an incredible opportunity, but are you sure I'm qualified? I don't have a traditional pre-med background." "Emily, listen to me carefully," Dr. Martinez said, his voice taking on the serious tone she remembered from important conversations at the clinic. "Academic prerequisites can be completed. Test scores can be improved with preparation. But the qualities that make someone an outstanding healthcare provider, the ability to remain calm under pressure, the instinct to advocate for patients, the skill to communicate with families during crisis situations, the judgment to know when rules should be followed and when compassion requires flexibility, those qualities can't be taught. You already have them." Emily thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. Starting as a community college graduate who just needed a job, working in a small clinic where she learned the fundamentals of patient care, facing a crisis situation that revealed capabilities she didn't know she possessed, and now working in a role where she helps families navigate the most challenging moments of their lives. "If I did apply for PA school," Emily said slowly, "would you be one of my instructors?" Dr. Martinez grinned. "I'd be honored to be one of your instructors, though I have to warn you, I'm probably going to have higher expectations for you than for my other students. You've already proven you can handle real-world healthcare challenges." "I want to do this," Emily said, the decision crystallizing as she spoke. "I want to apply to the PA program. Will you help me figure out what prerequisite courses I need to take?" "Absolutely. Dr. Williams said she could meet with you next week if you're interested. I took the liberty of getting her contact information." Emily hugged Dr. Martinez, feeling a rush of gratitude and excitement about the future that was opening up in front of her. "There's one more thing," Dr. Martinez said as they separated. "I had lunch with Tyler and Karen last month."
Emily looked at him with surprise. "You did?" Karen called and asked if I'd be willing to meet them for lunch as a way of saying thank you for that night. Tyler wanted to tell me about his science project on the human digestive system, apparently inspired by his appendicitis experience. Emily laughed. That's amazing. How are they doing? Really well. Karen got promoted at her new job, Tyler is thriving in school, and they both talk about you frequently. Karen said that watching you stand up for what was right that night taught her something important about finding her own voice when it matters. Emily felt touched by the idea that her actions had provided inspiration for Karen beyond just helping with Tyler's immediate medical needs. You know, Dr. Martinez continued, that night changed all of us in different ways. Tyler learned that healthcare providers genuinely care about their patients. Karen learned that accepting help isn't weakness and that standing up for yourself and your family is a form of strength. You learned that you are capable of leadership and advocacy in ways you'd never imagined. And I learned that my legacy wasn't just going to be the patients I treated over 37 years, but the healthcare professionals I influenced along the way. Emily felt the weight and beauty of that observation. Healthcare wasn't just about individual encounters between providers and patients. It was about a continuous chain of care, mentorship, and human connection that extended far beyond any single interaction. I should go help the family in room 7, Emily said, standing up from the lobby chair. But Dr. M, thank you for believing in me, for seeing potential I didn't know I had, and for showing me what healthcare can be when it's done with both competence and compassion. Thank you, Miha, for reminding an old doctor that the best part of medicine isn't the technical knowledge or the diagnostic skills. It's the moments when we get to help people through the scariest times of their lives. As Emily walked toward room 7 to meet with another family facing a healthcare crisis, she reflected on the unexpected journey that had brought her to this point. She'd started that Thursday evening 6 months ago, thinking she was just helping Dr. Martinez pack up his memories and close a chapter of his life. Instead, she discovered her own capabilities, found her professional calling, and learned that the most meaningful moments in healthcare often happen not in planned procedures or routine appointments, but in crisis situations where human decency, professional competence, and personal courage converge to make life-changing differences. Emily knocked on the door of room 7, took a deep breath, and prepared to help another family navigate their moment of greatest need. She was no longer just a receptionist following protocols. She was a healthcare professional with the skills, experience, and confidence to advocate for patients and families when they needed it most. And in 2 years, if everything went according to plan, she'd be a physician assistant with the clinical training to provide direct medical care while maintaining the human touch she'd learned from the best mentor she could have asked for. The story of that night with Tyler and Karen had become more than just a memory. It had become the foundation of who Emily was as a healthcare professional and who she was becoming as a person. Sometimes the most important transformations happen not gradually over time, but in single moments when we're forced to discover what we're truly capable of when it matters most.
Up next, 2 more incredible stories are waiting for you right on your screen. If you enjoyed this one, you won't want to miss these. Just click to watch and don't forget to subscribe.